Okay, this is going to be a video comparing the 1990 edition of The Republic of Rome by Avalon Hill and the 2006 edition of the game by Valley Games. Now, this isn't a formal review of the game itself. That's been handled very well by other video reviewers on YouTube. No doubt I'll get some of my own comments in on the game, but my primary reason for doing the video is just to compare the components. Maybe when this is done near the end, I'll make my own summation of which one I prefer. But we're going to go through the components one by one and just compare them and see what the differences are. So let's begin with the game boxes themselves. On the left is the Avalon Hill version 1990, and the right the Valley Games edition. And you can see the box sizes are different. The Avalon Hill one is the old bookcase style, and the Republic of Rome one by Valley Games is slightly larger. Now, art is a subjective thing. You either like art or you don't. Artwork for the one on the left, actually I prefer it over the Valley Games edition. And the reason being that I find the Valley Games edition, with this fellow looking like an emperor and stuff with the wreath on his head and the Colosseum in the background, doesn't really give me the feeling of Republican Rome. It looks more like the Imperial period, when the Colosseum wasn't built until well into the Imperial period. And of course you have the emperor there in purple. So the title of the game and the picture don't quite jive for me. Now, on the other hand, the Avalon Hill edition does give me that feeling. The game is very much about the Senate. There you've got the Senate in the background and the center giving a speech, and a trireme or quinquereme in a battle situation, and a Roman legion to symbolize the wars that the Republic was involved in. And I don't know, there's just something more Roman about that one, and more just suits the game better. But again, that's just my own personal opinion. Okay, let's take a look at the rulebooks. Well, the rulebook for Republic of Rome was kind of criticized at the time because it's a very different game than what was coming out on the market at that time. And a lot of the concepts were very difficult to explain. So the rulebook by Avalon Hill has taken a lot of hits over the years. It's complete. Everything in there, if you read it all, you will learn how to play the game. It's just that it's hard to look up stuff. And there was various errata and addenda over the years. So when Valley Games did the later edition, they had quite a task. Do they redo the whole book, or do they, what did they do? So they incorporated all of the errata into the new booklet and use a bit different format. Now we'll take a closer look at the rulebook so you'll see the difference. Okay, the Avalon Hill booklet was kind of the way they were doing things at the time. It's 24 pages long. It doesn't use a lot of color in it, but there are illustrations showing you the cards, some of the counters, fine print. And like I said, this is a complicated game. The learning curve is quite daunting. So, but it's adequate, I suppose. I had my difficulties with it over the years myself. I've had the game since the 1990s, off and on, and I'm still learning the darn thing. So that was the Avalon Hill booklet. Now the Valley Games edition, they went with a different format. It's the glossy kind of paper cover, glossy, beautifully illustrated book in full color. And how many pages are we talking here? We're talking 37 pages. It's got a very good index too. Now, there's things about this booklet I don't like either. One, the shiny pages and stuff makes it very difficult to Xerox if you want to have a rough copy. Because you don't want to be yellowing in and underlining the original booklet. Now, the rules, to be fair to the company, are available online, and I've done my own kind of rough copy here, Xerox them, and you can see underlining rules and stuff like that. This is my rough copy to learn the game. You don't really want to mess up the original rule booklet. The rule booklet for the new one, I like it, but one thing that drives me mad are the like what, 5-digit numbers. You want to look up something in the index, like here, influence. Rule 2.01.31 or Rule 1.10.11. This kind of stuff drives me mad. It's a pretty good index, though. Most of the stuff is there. But for some reason, now that I've got both editions, I keep coming back to the original one, the one that is supposedly flawed. So that's the two rule booklets, the differences between the two of them. Now I'm a little hard pressed for space here on the desk, so I've just put the Avalon Hill board on top of the Valley Games edition for now, just to show you the difference in size. The Avalon Hill board is slightly smaller, and that has advantages and disadvantages too. I'll get to that later. So the one here at an angle, that's the Avalon Hill board. Below it, the Valley Games edition. So I'm going to zoom in on certain sections of the board, and we can compare them. And to be fair, I guess I should show the Valley Games edition so you get an overall view. For those of you who are familiar with the game already, this is the forum section of the game. This is where the active wars are placed, unprosecuted wars, imminent wars, inactive wars, and your laws, state revenue, various tables to the right and left. And we'll go looking closely at both boards. Now the board to Republic of Rome is not like a traditional war game, because it's really a political game. The board is, in theory, almost unnecessary. The board is really a place where you place cards when you're playing them. So there's the forum, where senators are placed, things like that. And there's the Curia, where enemy leader cards are placed. The repopulating Rome space, when senators have to be brought onto the board. The destroyed concessions space. And there's where you actually place the deck. Over here, they've got a spot for it. There's the table for influence gains and losses. Section here where you discard your cards. There's the popular appeal table and the voting summary. And just off the cuff, I don't remember that on the new version. Looking sideways here, you've got a section for where inactive war cards are placed. We'll swing the board around a little bit again, and this is where you place active war cards. There's 3 spots there. And down at the bottom here, this is where you place unprosecuted wars. And over to the right, more tables, the land bills table. And over here where you place active forces. And the combat results table. Section of the board where you place any law cards that might come up. And the random events table. And our beloved assassination table. And the population table. And the games table. And last but not least is the state treasury table. So that's it for the tables that are on the board. And again, just an overall look at the Avalon Hill board. It was perfectly serviceable, did the job that it was supposed to do. Now let's take a look at the Valley Games edition. Okay, there's the Valley edition of Republic of Rome. I might say that the game is beautifully, or the board is beautifully made. It's a very good quality cardboard, and it's got a dull finish, unlike the Avalon Hill one that has a shiny finish. It's very well mounted, and when you fold it, you can hardly see the seams, so it's very well die cut, this game. Very well made. And let's go over the various sections as we did in the Avalon Hill version. Now there's the forum section of the game. There's the random events table, the combat results table, the influence popularity gains, population table. Here's the section for the unprosecuted wars. It's just got nice graphics. And there's the imminent wars section. draw pile section. Again, very nice graphics. Kind of reminds me of the computer graphics you see in a lot of games. There's the inactive wars. Again, nice graphics for where you place the enemy leaders. The repopulating Rome space. The destroyed concessions. And the law section of the board. There's the state revenue it's kept track of. The assassination table and the games table above it. There's your land bills table. There's where you put the active forces, the legions and fleets. Bit of spare space there where you put the force pools. And the popular appeal table. So I guess that little table I mentioned is missing, the one about the order of voting or something. Overall, though, a very nice looking map. Very good graphics on it. And art is always a subjective thing. Some people might like the original boards. Some people might like the new board. I think the new board's got better graphics, or at least graphics that are more in keeping with the times, I guess. I think board games and graphics are much like movies. They're very much a period of the era they were made. So the Avalon Hill board of 1990 was perfectly serviceable, looked good, and that was the way graphics were done in 1990. Now people expect a little bit more, and Valley Games has delivered. This is a very nice looking board. Now, I did point out that it is a larger board. That has some disadvantages. For one thing, it's very, well, everything fits in the box, as we're going to get to later. But this game takes a lot of space when you're playing it. And if you've got a larger board, that means there's less space on the side to place your cards, things like that. You need a large playing area to play this game. And with the Valley Games Edition, you need an even larger area. Okay, while I'm at it, I just wanted to show how packed this box really is. Now, you're going to be hard-pressed to get all the pieces back into the box once you've cut out the counters. I'm just going to give you one example of how you can put the game away. You've got your rules there. I've got some of the, that's the money in bags. I've got the legions and fleets in bags. Charts and a little plastic folders. There's the board folded up, and your little, it's going to be tricky to get it out. Okay, you can get it out, but there's your little voting boxes that I was mentioning, or I will mention. There's your province cards and stuff. You can see once the voting boxes and stuff are made and cut out, this box is full. You just you don't need an engineering degree to get them all in, but it is a little tight to get all the pieces in the Valley Games Edition. Now I'll show you the equivalent in the Avalon Hill in just a moment. Okay, now everybody's going to have a different sorting solution for their box, so I'll just show you what I came up with. There's the Avalon Hill edition, there's the rules. I put the number counters in a bag. I once again put the legions and fleets in a bag. Those are the negative numbers, I put them in a bag. I put the cards in boxes, and you can see that you're using every inch of space just to get the pieces in this game. And I got this, one of these, those plain old sorting things to put the extra counters in, some charts. Now the Avalon Hill does not have the little voting boxes, so you don't have the problem of trying to get everything in, and of course the board lies flat. So just to show you the difference, I'm not criticizing one over the other, just that you have to well, use your noggin to get all the pieces in. Let's see how fast I can put this thing away. I can assure you when you're putting the game away and having to sort the pieces, it takes longer than this. But that's not too bad. It does fit in without breaking the box. Avalon Hill's edition of Republic of Rome. Now we're next going to look at the counters, and we'll have to zoom in to look at these. Now we're not going to look at every single counter in the two editions, but look at some of the representative ones. Now these are the faction leader counters, and I will say something about the Valley Games Edition counters. The die cutting in them is very good. It's absolutely superb. You hardly have to punch the counters out. They almost fell out of the tree. Superb die cutting. They're a little slightly thicker than the Avalon Hill ones, and they're very clear, as you can see. The Valley Games Edition counters are on the bottom, Avalon Hill on the top. The Valley Games Edition also has a dull surface, while the Avalon Hill have their standard shiny surface. Now, one thing I noticed about the Avalon Hill edition that is maybe superior to the Valley Games edition, the Valley Games edition went with double-sided. In other words, the same symbol appears on both sides, which is handy for sorting and being able to find them fast, I guess. But the Avalon Hill ones have actually information on the back, and anything that aids in helping you not to look up rules is handy too. It's just a reminder that says, retained in death can't be persuaded. That's one of the rules, of course, for the faction leaders. So the faction leader counters, they look very similar. I guess if you had to rate the two of them for look, the Valley Games ones are slightly superior because they are in full color, slightly larger, and the Avalon Hill ones are in black and white. And there's the revenue counters. Again, the Valley Games edition below, with a nice little graphic of a bunch of stacked coins. Again, with a nice graphic in color, double-sided again. The Avalon Hills just have a plain white back, and just, of course, just have the word revenue. I mean, as you know, these are just game markers. That makes no difference to the game. But the Valley Games one is just going for a better visual appeal all around. And the unrest level chit, again the Valley Games edition with the nice little torch there, and the Avalon Hill with the plain just unrest level. Oh, why bother showing dice, you might say? Well, the Valley Games edition comes with these Romanized dice, and that's your standard Avalon Hill dice. Nice little touch, giving it a Roman feel, but I must admit, when you roll the dice quickly and you have to add up Roman numerals, you just can't seem to add it up quite as fast as standard pips on the die. Okay, there's the mortality chits, and with the Avalon Hill ones at the top. The little skeleton symbol is a bit more vivid, and the numbers are bigger, and they have this shiny Avalon Hill appearance. But again, the Valley Games edition has superior die cutting. They're very nicely cut. And the Avalon Hill ones are blank on the back. And I happen to get a bad set, so some of my counters for the Avalon Hill one are a little offset. That was not uncommon in the 70s with a lot of counters. But the chits do what they're supposed to do, and they are very similar in appearance. Okay, and a few more representative markers. The Avalon Hill ones at the top, the Valley Games edition on the bottom. You can see the priest marker is a little bit more vivid, nicer graphic. The prior console marker is very similar, except the Valley Games one is in color. The Avalon Hill game has the term markers, which aren't used in the Valley Games edition because we have the province cards work a little differently. But we'll get to that in a few moments. Okay, these are the money coins for the two editions. The larger coins at the bottom are the Valley Games edition. And the small little yellow coins here at the top are the Avalon Hill. And this is my first little mini criticism of the Valley Games edition. The money coins, though, they're very nice. The denominations are not on the coins themselves like the Avalon Hill. The Avalon Hill, you clearly know that's a 1 talent coin, a 5 talent, 3, a 10, 20, 50, 100, and so on. These ones you don't know exactly what they are. You have to go to the rules. They're on a nice little chart here, which I'll try to show, you know. But I hate having to dive for rules every time I want to find out the value of a coin. So I always have to go to the rules to find out. It's easy to remember that that's a 1 talent coin, and you kind of remember that that's a 5 talent. But you may forget later on that that's actually a 10, and this one's a 50, and that's a, what, I have to look it up myself, a 100 talent coin. Now the Avalon Hill had denominations that the Valley Game edition didn't have, like a 3 here, and a 20. It's a minor irritant. The coins do look nice in the Valley Games edition, but they're a bit of a pain when you have to count out and make change. I've heard stories that other people are just playing the game using poker chips. But we're just comparing counters here and showing you what they're like. They are double-sided, the Valley Games Edition, while the Avalon Hill ones are not. Again, the Valley Games Edition coins are very nicely struck on very good cardboard stock. Okay, these are the Legion and Fleet counters compared. The Avalon Hill ones at the top, Valley Games Edition ones on the bottom. Now those of you who have played the games will know that the flip side of the Fleet counters, they didn't have a flip side, they were just a color. And when you flipped the Legion in Republic of Rome, that was to indicate its veteran status. So what Avalon Hill did was, when you flipped it, it just changed the color. And it showed its new combat value of 2. A non-veteran Legion was a combat value of 1. Valley Games Edition didn't do that. They've went a different way. They've got beautiful graphics on it, full color. The Fleets, you flip, they're exactly the same on the other side, no difference there. But the Legions, of course, they had to show that it was veteran status, and you flip it, and you got this neat new graphic of a Roman centurion or praetorian, whatever, with his sword. So they've got, it's more graphically pleasing than the Avalon Hill one, although the combat value is missing. So there's information on the Avalon Hill counters that is lacking on the Valley Games. Not that it matters. I mean, you're all going to remember that a standard Legion is 1 and a veteran is 2, but it's just little things like that to show you the differences in the two. Which counters look better? Well, I mean, to me there's no comparison. The Valley Games Edition certainly has nicer looking Legion and Fleet counters. But again, for what they do in the game, the Avalon Hill counters are perfectly serviceable. Some of the more important counters used in the game are the office holders. Again, the Avalon Hill counters on the top, the Valley Games on the bottom. The Rome Consul, the Field Consul, the Proconsul, and the Dictator. Both carrying the same information on the front. On the back, the Valley Games Edition did put game information on the back, so here they followed the Avalon Hill model. Again, the die cutting is very good on the Valley Games Edition, more colorful, just nicer looking counters. Again, the Avalon Hill Edition, perfectly serviceable. I should point out at this part of the video that both games are the same. Republic of Rome by Valley Games is not a new game. So if you have the original edition Avalon Hill, you don't have to go out and buy the Valley Games Edition. It's just a reprint. But in reprinting it, they decided to upgrade some of the components. Let's take a look at some of the other counters. 4 more counters. Again, the Office of Censor, the Pontifex Maximus, the Manpower Shortage Marker, and the Naval Victory. Now in the Avalon Hill, they call it Fleet Victorious. Naval Battle 1 on the other side. And what is the Valley Games? They call it Naval Victory. And Naval Victory, just double-sided. Again, Valley Games Edition adding a bit more color to the counters. Okay, it's in the area of the cards that the Valley Games Edition kind of outshines the Avalon Hill one for sure. Here, for example, we are looking at the card for the Senator Julius. All of the information is still there: his military rating, his oratory rating, his loyalty, where you would place any knights in the game, his influence level, which can change, and his popularity level, which can also change, and the place where you'd put any money he's accumulated. The Avalon Hill game, of course, has the same information, just laid out a little bit differently, and the cards were quite plain. Even for an Avalon Hill game of that time, the cards were very plain. Now, the cards in the Avalon Hill version also have a generic picture for the leader. So it doesn't matter what the card is, the leader is always that same generic little face there. While in the Valley Games Edition, you get a new graphic for each senator. So the cards certainly are much nicer looking than the Avalon Hill one. The Avalon Hill, of course, has this their logo for the game on the back, as does the Valley Games Edition. So the Valley Games Edition cards for the Senators, I think, outshine the Avalon Hill ones. And I'll have more comments about that later. But let's take a look at some of the specialty cards too. Now, Statesman cards in Republic of Rome usually have red text, and that holds true in the Valley Games Edition also. So, for example, below the Valley Games Edition, we've got Cato the Younger, card 22B, with the same information that is on the regular Senators and any special capabilities he has. The Avalon Hill Edition, same thing. Although here we have Lucius Cornelius Sulla, and he's in red again, and his card acts much the same way as the Senator cards, with the same kind of information. I should point out that the Valley Games Edition separated the three decks in a different way than the Avalon Hill Edition did. And let's see what they did to show you the three different decks. Okay, for those of you who have not played the game, there are three decks of cards in Republic of Rome. There's the Early Republic, the Middle Republic, and the Late Republic. And Avalon Hill distinguished the decks by the center line that is on the card. And I missed this at first, and that messed me up in trying to learn the game. But that little subtle line is what distinguishes the deck. For example, there's a solid line, indicates one deck. This little wee deck that looks like a spear, that's another one. And then the dash line indicates another deck. That's how Avalon Hill did it. Valley Games did it an entirely different way. Let's see what they did. Okay, since the Valley Games Edition was working in a full color environment, they did it a different way. And makes sense when you're using full color. They distinguished the Late Republic by cards with a red border. The Middle Republic was distinguished with gray cards, and then the Early Republic was white cards. So you could sort them very quickly and distinguish the decks very quickly. It was a superior method, I think, than the Avalon Hill version. Okay, the event cards in Republic of Rome are double-sided. Again, the Valley Games Edition at the bottom, the Avalon Hill Edition at the top. Here's an example of the Storms at Sea card. You can see that the bottom card by Valley Games is a lot more wordy. There's a lot more information on the card, in case you're not clear on how it worked. Now, they were double-sided in the sense if you got another Storm at Sea, the card had a dark blue border and give you more information. The Avalon Hill one did it a different way. The information was much more shorter and truncated, and the flip side, the event was in red. I don't know if this shows very well in the video, but it's kind of a light pink. Another difference in the card is the Avalon Hill cards actually state on the card what the card is. See, it clearly says it's an event card, while the Valley Games Edition does not. Now, that might seem pretty simple, like saying, well, yeah, of course I know that's an event. Well, I tell you, when you're learning the game and there's like 160 cards to learn, you don't always know the difference between the cards. So that was kind of handy, stating right on the card what kind of card it was. The Intrigue cards were designed the same way. Again, Valley Games Edition on the bottom, nice colorful graphic. The wording is about the same, I guess, although I noticed that they show the actual little combat chart on the card, which the Avalon Hill one does not. So there you have minor differences in the card. Now, the flip side, oh yeah, these are just single-sided cards. So you have the generic symbols for the game on the back of those particular cards. Here's an example of some of the war cards below the Valley Games Edition, showing the Sertorian Revolt card, and at the top the Avalon Hill card showing the Second Illyrian War. Both cards had the information you needed to play the game, of course, but the Valley Games Edition, I don't think there's any question, is a superior layout. It's just a nicer looking card. The information is there, the disaster number, the standoff number, the number of legions you'd need to fight the war. the number of fleets you'd need to carry the army to the war, etc. Avalon Hill had the same thing. They're just hidden there, the 4-2. And the effect the war has. In this case, if you won the war in the Illyrian War, the estate would get 10 talents. You still have the little armament symbol there, showing you that the war is broken out. But again, on the card itself, the Avalon Hill, it states that it is a war card, while the Valley Games edition does not. Which card looks better? Well, don't think there's any question that the Valley Games edition does look better. But again, the Avalon Hill card was a product of the time and is perfectly serviceable for the game. And there we have a leader card, Valley Games edition on the bottom. That's Vercingetorix, showing you his combat value that he adds, +6. On the top is Philip V of Macedon, again on the Avalon Hill card, indicating that it is a leader card, while the Valley Games edition is not. Minor differences in the cards, the game played the same way. Now there's I think over 160 cards in this game, so I certainly won't be going through every card, but I'll lay the cards out to just show you generally what they look like when they're stacked, or you have to shuffle them. Okay, there's a quick look at some of the Avalon Hill cards, just to show you how many you get. There's quite a lot of cards. I should point out that the Avalon Hill cards are slightly smaller than the Valley Games edition, just by millimeters, and they're a shade thinner, which means that they'll fit in these little plastic sorting boxes fine, and you can fit them in the box easier. The Valley Games edition cards are beautiful quality, slightly thicker, and just millimeters larger. They also fit in the boxes too, so you don't have to worry about that. But there are quite a lot of cards, and when you have to shuffle them, you'll see what I mean. Closer look at one of the cards I didn't show, one of the law cards in the Avalon Hill edition. And we'll just scroll over and look at some of the cards again. Avalon Hill edition, very plain, but certainly functional. And they had a certain charm to them, you know. Just there's something about that edition I liked. Okay, just showing you how many of the Valley Games edition cards you get. The same number as the Avalon Hill, just that they are full color and good quality. And let's zoom in on one of the law cards, which I didn't show in the previous scene. There's one of the law cards. Thank goodness you don't have to use these too often. They are very wordy, just to show you what they're like. And again, there's one of the senators there, Fabius. Very colorful, nice looking cards from Valley Games. Okay, we're going to take a look at the province cards in the game, and this is maybe the controversial part of the video, you might say. On the left is the Avalon Hill province cards, and on the right are the Valley Games edition cards. For those of you who have played the game, you may remember that the cards were double-sided. So over here, for example, is the province of Further Spain, and when the province is improved in the game, you flip it to its other side, and Avalon Hill shows a pink side with different values. Now the Valley Games edition is similar, although I actually have them reversed here. The unimproved side, let's say for example, there's Africa, unimproved, yellow side, and when it's improved, you flip it to the green side. Now we're going to have to zoom in soon to show you the differences, and they are legion. There's quite the difference in these two editions. The Avalon Hill game is simply a card. It's literally just a card. Further Spain and the improved side. The Valley Games edition is quite different. There's the unimproved side, and then the improved side. But you can see these little wee brads there. That's to operate these little wheels on the side. And this is where I find the game is getting too cute. It's getting finicky. It's an aid to playing, but I'll show you how they work first. Okay, now in both versions of the game, when a governor was assigned to a province, he served for 3 terms. And in the Avalon Hill version, what one did was they took a little wee term marker here and put it on to show that the governor had served one term. And as he played, he moved it to the second term and eventually to the third term. And when his term was up, the governor returned to Rome, and you remove the term marker. You just can't get any simpler than that. Let's see how the Valley Games edition handled that same game procedure. Okay, here for example is the province of Africa. And let's say your governor went to Africa and he had to serve out 3 terms. Well, they had this little wee wheel here at the bottom. You see the number where he serves 1 term. And when he goes to his second term, you just slide the little wheel here. Whoops, you're going to 3, see what I mean? Clockwise, whatever. 1. There's his second term. And then you turn the wheel and he goes to his third term. So that's how it worked. There's a mine of information on these counters, on the cards, as you can see. The provincial spoils was on there, the state income, local taxes. Up there was the information about legions and fleets and stuff like that, which the Avalon Hill game also had. But they include 2 more little wee wheels here, which, you know, I don't even know what they're for. This one on the right. I guess that's for advanced rules, which I haven't used yet. It's obviously got something to do with fleets. And over here is the legion number down here. Bit of a shadow there. Again, with a little wee wheel to show, I guess, how many legions are in there. And it's an ingenious, well, look, goes 8, 9, 7, 6. It's an ingenious little thing. A lot of work went to designing these things. I mean, they're double-sided. They've got the little brads, the wheels, all that stuff. I just find it finicky. And just try to sort these things, because as you know, if you've played the game, at some point in the game you have to take these province cards and sort them, and try to sort them with these little wee brads always sticking is a pain, just a pain. I find myself cursing them all the time, and though I love the look of the cards, I question this little wheel thingy. Anyway, that's just me. Some people may just love it. But when I compare it to the simplicity of the Avalon Hill version, where you just take a term marker and put it on and move it, you know, 1, 2, 3, and I can easily sort these cards, I sometimes wonder if it isn't a step backwards. But that's just me. I'm just trying to show you the differences between the 2 editions. Okay, well, before showing you the Valley Games edition of how the voting worked, let's show you how the Avalon Hill one worked. Well, each player would have before him, of course, his little wee faction card. In this case, we've got the hand factions card. And there'd be a mine of information here on how the game is played, the various phases. And here is where you recorded the votes that your party had. So let's say, for the sake of argument, the hand faction had 14 votes. So you'd put a little wee 1 marker on there and a 4, and lo and behold, it's an indicator that the faction of the hand has 14 votes. If later on in the game you had to change that number and they gained votes or lost them, let's say they got to 13 votes, they lost the member, they go to 13 votes. So it was a simple system. You just put number cards on the counter. Very simple. You certainly couldn't argue with that. Now, what did the Valley Games edition do? They did something pretty darn innovative. I got to give them that. Let's take a look at what they did. Now, somebody at the Valley Games company loves wheels, and what they did was they put these little wee wheels again, and see, I hope you can see that in the video. You can see 14 votes, and then you can swing this down to 15 votes or 16 votes, that kind of thing. It was kind of cute. Now, meanwhile, on the other side, the opponents could see the votes too. When you turn the wheel here, the votes change. So every other member sitting at the table could see your votes change as your party votes changed. You had to make these little wee cardboard boxes that came with the game. They were easy to construct. But the big problem was once they were constructed, as you can see, they're 3-dimensional. And boy, try to get those into the original box, as I mentioned. It was quite a feat to get every piece to fit in the box. It's possible to do so, but it's really pushing it. Now, another neat thing was they had some rules here which were very helpful. It shows you what the faction treasury could do and what the single personal treasury could do. Another neat little thing was, for those of you who played the game, you could hide what money you had from other players. At least the faction could. The senator markers had their talents placed right on the card, but the factions could hide their money in this little wee box here. And you put the cover on, and your opponents would never really know how much money is in your faction treasury. So I'm a little bit kinder to the voting boxes than I am to those darn provincial cards. I just can't seem to warm up to them. But it does take up space in your box. And whether it's superior to the simple Avalon Hill, you know, just putting in a marker down, well, that's, you know, for other people to decide. It was a neat way of revamping the game. It is colorful. So voting box or card, I guess it's just a personal preference kind of thing. But I'm not as hard on the voting box thing as I am on the provincial cards. It was kind of nifty. Now, one difference in the game were these player aid cards, which each faction gets. Now, as one would expect, the Valley Games edition, you'd expect it to be the more colorful one, and it is. It's just more colorful, a bit more yellow, and it's on a nice quality stock paper, while the Avalon Hill is just on black and white stock. But there's a difference here that I'm not sure why they did it, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it. Let me zoom in on the card and you'll see what I mean. Now, the Avalon Hill card clearly shows the sequence of play. Very detailed. And of course the faction treasury and the vote markers, as we showed in the last segment of the video. But the Valley Games edition, for some reason, specifically shows the solitaire two-player sequence of play, which I believe is a lot like the standard game. I'd have to look at each phase to make sure, see if there's any differences. But I thought it curious that they would do that. They got the faction dominance chart, which is not on the Avalon Hill one. Again, colorful sprite showing the hand faction. And was it two-sided? No, it was just showing the hand on one side. The Avalon Hill, oh, the Avalon Hill one has the solitaire two-player game on the back and the standard game on the front. So that was a curious change in the game. It doesn't change the game, just I wondered why they designed the charts that way. Someone who's a veteran with the game might be able to answer that for me later. So I just wanted to point it out. There are differences, slight differences, in the charts. I guess at this point I could do kind of a summation of the two games. I'm kind of a conservative guy, and I do like the original one a lot, even though the newer one is more colorful. Now, if we were to rate each category, let's say I was to take the cards and rate them out of 5 and say which edition is better. And let's say we'll take the Avalon Hill cards and give them a rating of, let's say, 3 out of 5. And we give the Valley Games edition 5 out of 5. And let's say we look at the counters and give the Avalon Hill maybe 3 out of 5 and the Valley Game edition 5 out of 5. And let's say we were to rate the cover, and I personally like the earlier cover better, and let's say I gave the Avalon Hill version 5 and the Valley Games edition 3. If we were to add up all those numbers, the Valley edition would clearly come out ahead. It is a superior edition graphic-wise, and it is the same game. But for me, the darn thing isn't really a sum of its parts. For some reason, I don't know why exactly, I kind of am drawn to the Avalon Hill version more. Now, I'm going to have to play both versions again and just see which one comes out on top. From a practical sense of playing, I think the Avalon Hill version is better because it's just easier to deal with the cards and not those finicky province markers. The wheels for the voting is cute, but you know, it's not really necessary for playing the game. I want to commend Valley Games for making the game available, because this fine game, one that I think is one of the best ever designed, is now available to a whole new audience of players. If I was giving out the equivalent of Academy Awards for games, I'd rate Republic of Rome as one of the top games of all time. I believe it won the Charles Roberts Award in, 1990 for Best Pre-20th Century War Game, and that doesn't surprise me at all. So that's going to be it for the comparison of the two games. Like I said, it's not a review of the game. My personal view is that Republic of Rome is a very fine game, one of my favorites, and one you should try. And it certainly shines as a multiplayer game. No matter what edition you have, I'm sure you'll enjoy them if you haven't played it yet. The verdict is still out. I'm still leaning towards the Avalon Hill version as my favorite, but I'm no fool. I mean, graphically speaking, the Valley Games edition is superior. Maybe it's, as my son mentioned, well, why don't you just make a hybrid version? You know, use the board of the Avalon Hill one if you like, and the counters from the Valley Games edition. I don't know. Don't know if I want to mix the two, but that's it for my review, or rather my non-review of Republic of Rome, just comparing the two games. And if you do own the game, I hope you get a chance to play it, because it's a very fine game.